Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I remain your favorite IGCSE ICT coach. Today we'll be doing October November 2024 question paper 03. I'll begin with the spreadsheet section. So, as usual, I'll leave out the evidence document part, go straight into task 2. You work for Tower web developers and will edit a spreadsheet that analyzes data on web page hits and advertising. Open the file, open and examine the file N24 hits. So I will open. So I have N24 hits here. I'll open to examine it. Alright, so here we have the file that we're going to be working with. Back to the question, it says rows 9 to 38 show the number of hits on or visits to each page during a 24-hour period. The number of hits for each hour are stored in columns F to AC. So here we have number our web pages, and from here we have the number of hits on each web page per hour, and this continues for 24 hours. Okay, so let's click and double click here to expand our form spreadsheet so that we can see everything we have. Okay, so it says we should go ahead to place our name and counting number on the left in the header. So you go to insert, go to text group header. On the left of the header, enter our name, our center number, and our candidate number. Very well. So it then says should place the text created on, followed by space. By a space, then the automated date on the right in the header. In the header on the right, created on, followed by a space, automated date. Okay, there is an automated date. Right, we've done that. So it says we should save this as a spreadsheet with the file name hit underscore, followed by center number and candidate number, just like this is. Okay, so it's always important to do this saving aspect because you need to save your work as an Excel workbook. CSV is a text file, so when you're done entering all your formulas and you don't save it as Excel workbook this way, your formulas will not save. So always ensure you do that. So center number is NG038 underscore 001. Okay, so can save that. Okay, so that's that. Next, it says we should format all data in rows 9 to 38 to be center aligned. Rows 9 to 38. Okay, so click on this to return to the normal view. So from rows 9 to 38, all the data should be center aligned. Center aligned this way. Okay, it says format rows 1 to 8 of the spreadsheet so that it looks like this. So format rows 1 to 8. First, we'll make sure cells A1 to F1 and D3 to E3 are merged. So A1 to F1 this way are merged. Let's merge and center. And then D3 to E3 also merged. D3 to E3 are merged and centered. All right. So if you notice, I think it says make sure that the text in row 1 is 24 points. So this text will make it 24 points, and I think it's bold. Okay, it's not bold. So we can bolden the text in row 3. So click on row 3 and click on bold to make all of that bold. The text in row 8 is also bold. Click and make it bold. It's also center aligned. The text is center aligned, so you make it center aligned and click to place it at the middle, then text wrap the text here, okay, so that we can have this something like this. Then if you notice, this is also center aligned, so this is center aligned, this is center aligned, this is aligned to the right. Okay, same goes for this, aligned to the right, sorry, to the right, and then this is center aligned. Okay, good. All right, I think we've done most of it, and this is carrying the dollar sign, so let's highlight and give it the dollar sign. You can click here and then go to currency and ensure our currency is not in naira but in dollar, in dollars. So you could use any of the dollar sign. Let's use let's say the United States dollar. Click OK. Remember that our the decimal place is about 4 decimal places or so. So let's click here, click here, click here. So that does that. So we're good. All right, so let's work on this. Okay, so if you notice, this is a little down. Okay, so that we can move this in and have total number and then of hits on the next line that way. Then same for average, number of hits goes down. So yeah, that way. Traffic level, the level goes down. Okay, good. Then advertising revenue, the revenue goes down. So we are good to go. So it says place a replicable formula in cell B9 to calculate the number of hits for the web page 40173 during the 24-hour period. So we're calculating the number of hits. So that means we're going to be adding all the hits during the 24-hour period. So we're using the formula sum of all the number of hits within the 24-hour period. Then we hit enter to give us the total number of hits. Then here it says we should place a replicable formula in cell C9 to calculate the average number of hits per hour for this web page. So this time around we are doing average number of hits for that web page. So highlight all that we have for the 24 hours. Okay, so let's go on. Yep, and then enter. So that's the average number of hits. It says place a replicable formula in D9 using nested if function. So we're going to use nested if function to display the text from cells D4. All right, so this is cell D4, D5. So we're going to be displaying the text high, medium, and low. All right, when the content of cell C9, this is cell C9 now, that's the average hourly number of hits. When our average hourly number of hits is greater than the traffic threshold. So this is the traffic threshold. So if what we have here is greater than 400, then it should show high. If it is greater than 250 but less than 400, it should show medium. If it is greater than 0 but less than 250, it should show low. So that's what we're trying to achieve there. Okay, and so we definitely need to use nested if statement. So you say equal to if, you open a bracket. So usually Excel will give you this tooltip that tells you how each function works. And then another tip is that the question will always tell you the function to use. So here we talked about number of hits, so you know you are summing up. Here we talked about average, you know you are doing average. Here it says using the if function. So if you don't know what to do, just begin by typing the if function. And then the question says if this value, okay, I think I'm entering it in the wrong place. Pardon me. So it's saying equal to if this value, trying to find the traffic level, if this value is greater than, all right, 400, then if it is greater than 400, what should happen if that is true? Then it should return high for us. So you click on D4 to return high. Okay, so this is our logical test. This is our value if true. So we're going to be doing the next if to test for medium using the value if false. So you do comma and say if here and open the bracket and then test again and say if C9, all right, is greater than 250, then it should return medium. And then we'll also do the final if to test for low. If our C9, all right, is greater than 0, then it should return low. Okay, so we can close our bracket, close every bracket, close the final bracket and hit enter. Okay, so now let's do this. Let's go back to the question. It says place a replicable formula in cell E9 to look up the rate for this traffic level and multiply by the total number of hits for this web page. Place a replicable formula in cell E9 to look up the rate for this traffic level, the rate, and multiply it. So there are two things we are doing here. We look up the rate for the particular traffic level, and then we multiply by the total number of hits for this web page. So let's do that quickly. So for lookup, we will definitely use a lookup function. So the table we are looking up is this table, and this table is a vertical table. So we'll be using a vertical or a V lookup function. So we are looking up our lookup value is this. Let's go back to the question and be sure what we're doing. It says place a replicable in cell E9 to look up the rate for this traffic level and multiply by the total number. So we're looking up rate. So this is the rate here. So that means if this is high, it should return this rate. If it is medium, it should return this rate. So that's what we're doing. So you click on this, okay? All right, like I always tell you, this gives us a tooltip we can follow. That's our lookup value D9. Our table array next is to highlight this table. Okay, so this table we have highlighted has column 1, 2, 3. So we're using the lookup value in column 1 to look up what or to return the value in column 3. So our column index number in this case will be 3, the entire comma, and we have to return an exact match. I use 0 for an exact match. Okay, so you can see that where we have high, it returns this. So this works. All right, but the question doesn't end there. It says we should multiply it, okay, multiply it by the total number of hits for this web page. So you come here and multiply it by the total number of hits and then hit enter. That's it. Okay, so uh, it says question 7 says replicate the formula entered in steps 3 to 6 for all web pages. So let's do this. Replicate. Place your cursor here, place it here until it turns to this black cross. Click to replicate. Same for high. Now there's an error with our high formula and I'll show us before we correct it. So let's click. So now we are seeing 0, 0. Then this works for high. This works for medium. But this also works for low. This doesn't work. Okay, if you go through, you see that it doesn't work. So the reason why is it not working? That's because we are not using. Now that's because we only want to use the values in this table. So if you notice, this is relatively referenced. So to make it absolutely referenced, what we'll do is that our D and E columns will add the dollar sign to them. So you add the dollar sign before the E and then the number 4. Do the same for D and 4. Do the same for E here, add the dollar sign. So what we're doing is to make these cells absolutely referenced rather than referencing them relatively. Okay, so that's what we're doing by putting the dollar sign. Dollar sign. Okay, so let's put that for D. Let's do the same for E, 6, and then for D 6. So after entering the formula, you hit enter. So let's replicate the formula this time around. Double click. So you see it works now. So after doing your formulas, always visually check to be sure that everything works perfectly. So I believe mine is perfect. So you can double click this and it will work. However, see we have an error here. Now don't always wait to have errors before you know whether your formulas will work correctly or not. The reason why this isn't working is because our D4, all right, is meant to be absolutely referenced. So let's look at it again. VLOOKUP. So our formula is we're using this to look up this. So VLOOKUP when we are D9, lookup value D4 to F6. Okay, it's supposed to be absolutely referenced. So put the dollar sign before the sorry, we put the dollar sign before the D and then the dollar sign before the 9. The dollar sign before the 9. The dollar sign before the okay, no, sorry, this is meant to be relatively referenced, so that's our lookup value. Where we're putting the dollar sign is here, okay, for our array. Pardon me for that. Okay, I'm in a bit of a rush, that's why. So also take note, when you doing your exams, you don't need to rush. This also needs to be relatively referenced. So don't rush so that your work can come out absolutely fine. So this is it. This has been perfectly done. Let's go back to our question. It says we should format cells E9 to E38 as currency in dollars to 2 decimal places. All right, E. So that's our advertising revenue. So we have to highlight all of this and make this currency in dollar. So we're using the United States dollar to 2 decimal places. Good. So this is good. Next, it says we should place a replicable formula in cell B4 to count the number of web pages with high traffic and replicate this formula for medium and low traffic. So we have to place in B4. So this is B4. So we're going to count this to find the number of highs. So how do we do that? We do equal to, this time around we are counting, but we are counting if it is high. So we're counting this array or range. We're counting this range. Okay. And then what's our criteria? Our criteria is if we find the value high. So just click here where we have high. Okay, and make sure it is okay, so that's fine, and then you enter. So it gives us 15. So we should also do the same for medium and low. So you can say equal to if count in the bracket, we're counting the range. Okay, count the range, comma, and now instead of clicking on this to give us D5, another way to do it is you could put do speech quotes and type medium speech quote again. So wherever it finds medium, it will count it for you. So that works. Okay, another way you could do this is copy this formula, paste it here. But each time you do that, ensure you use the correct. Come back to edit your formula and use the appropriate range. So this is from D9 to D38. So make sure that is done. And then this is meant to be low. And then you hit enter when you're done with that. So this is good. So moving on. So it says then it says we should replicate this formula for medium, low, and strong. Okay, we've done that. So it says we should save our spreadsheet. Okay, let's save our spreadsheet. Control S to save our spreadsheet. Then it says we should print only cells A1 to F38 showing the formula and make sure that the printout is in portrait orientation. The row and column headings are displayed. The contents of these cells are fully visible. So we are printing A1 to F38. So usually I would let's go to our formulas and click on show formulas, then click here and double click between any two columns rather, so that they close up all the gaps, and then usually check if you can see all the formulas are visible. So it says we should print from F1 A1 to F38. So this is A1 from A1 to F38. This is what we are printing. Okay. Alright, this is our printout is in portrait orientation. So you go to file, go to print. Now you go to another printed active sheet, print selection, then portrait orientation. Usually print in A4 paper, so make it A4. Alright. Since the row and column headings are displayed, to do that you go to page setup, go to sheet, click on row and column headings, and then click OK. So here you have your row and column headings. Okay. And then it says the contents of these cells are fully visible. All right, and then this is showing us 3 pages, so let's ensure that it fits into one page. So what to do is click on no scaling and then fit all columns on one page. So it does this for you. Now you can print. So we've done everything. So let's locate our folder here, 2024 W, yeah, and here. So call this printout1, and then we save. All right, that's good. Back to the question. It says apply conditional formatting to cells D9 to D38 inclusive to display a green background if the cell contains high. So we're applying conditional formatting. Click on show formulas, remove that. So D9. So let's highlight all of this. We're applying conditional formatting. Go to home. That's where we can apply conditional formatting. Then we'll be using highlight cell rules if, because we're looking at text that contains, so you click on that. So when our text contains, let's see the question. It says when our text contains high, then it should give us a green background if the cell contains high, and then make sure that the text in each cell is clearly visible. So make sure we do that. So if it contains high, you can type high there. Alright, see it's already highlighted in red. So you can come here, click on that arrow, click on custom format, and then what we want is to fill the background, not the font. So we want to fill the background with green. So you can select green to fill the background, but then we'll need to pick a text that is contrasting. So we'll go to font and then look for color. I think white will be good. Then click OK. So that's done. So we'll go back again and do same for text that contains medium. Okay, let's check for what color. So for medium we have orange color. So do exactly like we did before. Custom, go to fill, go to orange. Okay, so that should be orange color. Pick on the color, then font. Black would work. I think white might also work for this. Let's use black. Let's click OK. Okay, so do the same for low. Highlight text that contains, type low, and then just like we did before, custom format. Fill, what color is our fill this time around? Fill is red. So your fill, you pick red. Your font, okay, let's say white. White will work. Okay, and then when we're done, you click OK. So this is perfect. Back to the question, it says make sure that the text in each cell is clearly visible, which is what we've done. Take a screenshot of your method, making sure that the formatting set and range of cells are clearly visible. So to do that, it's just what we've done, but you take screenshots. You come to highlight this, then you type your whichever one you're typing, okay, and then you do this, okay, bring this somewhere here, okay, can take this off just so that we have proper screenshots. Okay, can bring this down and then screenshot all of this, including this, and then you paste in your evidence document. Okay, so that's that. So question number 12 says change the font color of cells F8 to AC38 to white. F8, so you can come here and type F8 column AC38 and hit enter. So it selects all of that. Turn the font color to white as instructed. Okay. Then it says print only columns A to F inclusive, showing the values A to F, columns A to F. So let's click here and double click to open up everything, and then we'll highlight A to F inclusive. Okay, and it says the printout fits on a single page. The printout is in portrait orientation. The row and column headings are not displayed. You go to file, go to print, go to print selection, that's correct. A4, portrait orientation. Okay, everything fits on a single page. The row and column headings are not showing. So you go to sheet, remove the row and column headings. Good. And then it says the content of all cells in columns A to F except those cells where the font color is white are fully visible. Yeah, so everything here is fully visible. So we print like that. And we'll call this print out 2. That's it. Sent to the printer. Alright, so with this we've come to the end of this video. I hope to see you in the next one. Please like, share and subscribe if you enjoy our content. See you on the next one.